Welcome to the newsletter. Can the US supply modern fighters to Ukraine after the Russian raids? On Channel HT New. A few days after Ukraine's defense minister said he was confident in getting tanks and fighter jets from NATO countries, Kiev selected pilots to train on Western fighters. Ukraine's Air Force spokesman Yuri Ihnat recently announced that the force has selected a contingent of pilots to train them to fly Western fighters. Lieutenant General Mykola Olshuk, the commander of the Air Force, identified a group of dozens of pilots who are ready and can start training tomorrow. We just have to decide what kind of fighter aircraft the pilots need. Partners are willing to provide us. These pilots are young, promising, fluent in English and have combat experience, said Mr. Ihnat. Although the details of the fighters were not specified in the statement of the Ukrainian Air Force spokesman, it is an indication that Ukraine is very optimistic about being able to receive the fighters to fight. Deal with Russia. Expressing optimism about Ukraine being able to receive fighter jets from the West, Ukraine's defense minister Oleksiy Reznikov said last week, "I am optimistic that Abrams tanks can be operational in the future and I am sure that fighters like the Swedish F-16, F-15 or Gripen will also be possible." The Eurasian Times reported in July that the U.S. House of Representatives had approved $100 million to train Ukrainian pilots to fly U.S. fighter jets within the framework of the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act. No decision has been made on the delivery of advanced fighter jets to Ukraine due to fears of a direct military escalation with Moscow. The Ukrainian Air Force still lacks modern fighters to help the country gain air superiority. Ukraine's fighter fleet is mainly composed of fighters from the Soviet era, and Kiev has repeatedly called on the West to help with newer aircraft such as F-16 or F-15. Two Ukrainian fighter jet pilots, with the symbols Juice and Moonfish, are believed to have traveled to Washington in June to appeal to U.S. lawmakers to help train Ukrainian pilots. While this is certainly a risky move, it is not uncommon for Washington to train foreign pilots to use American fighters. In late August, Russian state media reported that the Pentagon was training former Afghan fighter pilots in preparation for their deployment to Ukraine. The possibility of the U.S. supplying fighter jets to Ukraine. Preliminary discussions on equipping Ukraine with F-16s are still ongoing. However, Washington officials do not believe that will happen, as the conflict is still raging over the logistics of training Ukrainian pilots and the supply of necessary replacement parts for the aircraft. Advanced flying. At the annual Aspen Security Forum conference held in June, General Charles Q. Brown, the U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff, said, "There are American fighters, Swedish Gripen, Eurofighter, Rafale. So there are a number of different weapons platforms to supply Ukraine." Then, in July, White House spokesman John Kirby hinted at the possibility of transferring fighter jets to Ukraine when he told reporters that Washington was thinking about sending fighter jets to Ukraine. Production to Ukraine. However, Mr. Kirby added that the administration of President Joe Biden was conducting preliminary research on the feasibility of sending fighter jets to Ukraine, but that would not be done immediately. It is speculated that the U.S. may be planning to send the A-10 Warthog to Kiev instead of the F-16, but there has been no confirmation from the U.S. yet. However, Ukraine still insists that the slower planes will not be able to deal with the heavy Russian fighters. Moscow deployed its best fighters, including the Su-30, Su-34 and Su-35, during its military campaign in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Air Force is using old Soviet-era fighters that even Russia is using, such as MiG-29, Su-25 and Su-27. After Russia launched unprecedented air strikes on Ukraine in early October, the Ukrainian military felt the need for better fighter jets, better air defenses and total military support. More likely from NATO countries. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, share to support and update the latest videos from the HT News channel.